Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Let's Dev, where today we're continuing to work on our creepy cavernous exploration game. Last time we added new gameplay elements, including stamina and flashlight energy resources. We also added ways to replenish said resources through a couple of pickups. And finally, we added a way for the player to, well, technically fight back against the monsters. This was done via a vision cone, which would allow the player to use their flashlight as a means to temporarily deter the would-be attackers. The session left us with a lot of new additions, but also the dilemma of just how to balance everything. Well, we'll hopefully get one step closer to figuring that out with today's plan. We'll be adding new ways for the player to interact with the world. Specifically, we'll be adding throwable rocks and glow sticks, which the enemies will also react to. And in order to manage these new resources, we'll make an attempt to create something never tried before in Let's Dev history. Sounds exciting, so let's not waste any more time and get to the coding. First up, we needed a couple temp sprites for our rock and glow stick items. Next, an inventory struct was created to keep track of our item counts. Next, I wanted to try something I've never tried before, and that's creating a radio menu. For now, our menu would consist of 4 quadrants, though I'd yet to decide exactly what would be in each quadrant. And using a couple loops, a bunch of formatting, and a ton of my session time, the visual aspect of our radio menu was finally created. So now that the visual was completed, it was time to make this thing functional. In the step event, when the radio menu is active, the mouse's position relative to the center of the screen would be recorded. That position is then simplified to the nearest quadrant of the menu. Then to display this visually, a big ol' arrow sprite would point to said quadrant. It wasn't pretty by any stretch, but it was functional. Speaking of which, an ugly blue gradient sprite was then added to show our currently selected inventory item. This would be set based on a left-click check while the radio menu is open. And so, to put the kibosh on this very time-consuming detour, the text draw code was simplified into functions because I couldn't bear to stare at so much code that ended up doing so little. Anyway, a new button check for throwables was added along with a throwable object. The object itself would simply act as a projectile flying in a specified direction. The corresponding throwable would then be spawned when the action key is pressed, and a small light source would then be drawn for any glow sticks thrown. This thankfully translated well into practice, with the player now being able to toss rocks and working glow sticks. But before any back padding could be done, those rocks needed to be more than just for show. So back in the throwable object, a landed boolean was added. And when the throwable lands, well, this would set it to true. And if the throwable is a rock, it would emit a similar sound ping as the player does when moving. And then, using a sequencer, which ended up taking a bit to work with the monster's existing code, the sound ping would only attract monsters within earshot for just a few frames. The results weren't perfect, but sadly that was all the time I ended up having for this session. The radio menu ended up taking so much longer to figure out than anticipated, mostly due to the math. It's always the math. However, I'm liking the direction that the game is going, and I've decided to take the project down a less arcadey route, which has really opened up the possibilities for this project. However, I'm noticing that the shift is going to require a rewrite to the way that the monster behavior is handled, so that should be fun. On the other hand, assuming nothing goes completely wrong, this could end up being something really funky that I'm really down for seeing to the end. Like, full transparency, if it's not obvious by now, like, I've become a little obsessed with this project and its potential. But alas, progress must wait because we have come to the end of today's episode of Let's Dev. So remember to leave a like if you enjoyed the episode, subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't already, and leave your thoughts on our progress in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.